This session is brought to you by Carl Bloom Associates. For more than 44 years, Carl Bloom Associates has helped nonprofits raise millions of dollars to fund their missions through direct mail, email, social media, and strategic campaign management. Carl Bloom Associates is the driving force behind the International Public Library Fundraising Conference and Library Giving Day. For more information, visit carlbloom.com.
Hello and welcome to Better Together, Field Notes on Merging Your Friends and Foundation. I'm your moderator, Christina McPhillips, and I'm pleased to introduce Kathleen Morgan. Kathleen serves as Lawrence Public Library's Director of Development and Community Partnerships. She has a hybrid role at the library, serving as the Executive Director of the Friends and Foundation, while also leading a team that oversees the library's marketing, adult programming, and volunteer management. She has enjoyed the thrill of the Lawrence Public Library roller coaster since 2009. And with that, Kathleen, I'll throw it to you.
Thank you, Christine. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. It is such a pleasure to be with all of you today. We miss seeing you in person, but one of the advantages of holding this conference virtually is that our entire team can participate and tell our story of merging our friends and foundation. This is our group photo, our illustrious crew. And it's such an honor to introduce my two colleagues that work with me on the Lawrence Public Library Friends and Foundation. Angela Hyde is to the left, and she is our program and volunteer coordinator. She started with the Friends in 2015 and has been instrumental in building an incredibly successful book sale operation with the Friends, as well as an incredible volunteer force. She manages more than 300 volunteers, both for the Friends and for the library. Angela has a background in geology, so she enjoys heavy stuff like rocks and books. So she's our scientist. And in the middle is Logan Isaman. She's our fundraising and advocacy assistant. She started with the Library Foundation in 2018 and earned her MLS in December. Logan pulls us out of all sorts of technology glitches, and we are always grateful for her help. She is joined in quarantine by 3 needy cats, one of which is with us today, Myrtle Beans. So the 4 of us will tell you the story of the Lawrence Public Library Friends and Foundation merger. So the title of our presentation, as Christina said, is Better Together, Field Notes on Merging Your Friends and Foundation. Lawrence Public Library is located in Lawrence, Kansas. Our city has one central library that serves a community of 100,000 people. We started our merger adventure in October of 2018, and it became official on January 1st of this year. We purposefully set a goal of having the merger effective at the start of our fiscal year so that we did not have to have a partial year audit. Better Together was our motto that carried us through the 14 months that we were preparing to merge. And we call this presentation Field Notes because merging entails way more than changing your governing documents and drawing up legal papers. The qualitative pieces like trust and relationship building and listening and creating a shared mission are so essential. So our presentation will be a collection of our collective observation throughout the merger process. One important note that I want to share with you is that it was at this conference that we got the courage to actually do this. When I first attended in 2018 in Denver, merging was the topic of many of the conversations during the social gatherings. And then in last year in Calgary, Logan and I collected even more great advice from many of you who are watching today. So thank you. In many ways, you have helped us achieve this goal, and we couldn't be more grateful. So now I'm going to turn it over to Logan, who's going to outline the overall components of our presentation today.
All right, I'm Logan, and here is our overview. We tried to set this up so that it would be a bit of a narrative for you, so that it's interesting. We're going to start with the history of our organizations, then moving into building our relationship together, discovering some administrative overlap in the 2 organizations, giving you guys a little how-to guide to help with your merger exploration, and then the success that we've been finding with it. And we'll turn that over to Angela.
That's me. So just to give you a little history about our friends and foundation, in 1972, the Carnegie Association for the Lawrence Public Library was kind of envisioned. It came into effect in 1973. And there's a beautiful picture of our old library. We have since renovated and it looks much different. But we had our first book sale on June 14th in 1973, and it raised a whopping $1,748, which was a pretty big deal at the time. The Friends kind of chugged along for years with bigger and better book sales. And in 1996, we received a substantial gift, and the Friends really weren't equipped to handle that and process it. So the foundation was formed to handle those larger gifts. Fun fact, our current board chair was a founding member of both our Friends and our foundation groups. So she's been around for a lot of important milestones in our public library. Fast forward to 2009, Kathleen was hired by the foundation, and I'll let her kind of talk about foundation-y stuff from there.
Thank you. Yes, at the time that I started with the foundation, I was part-time and the two organizations operated very separately. At the end of the year, we sent out separate letters for asking for donations from the community. And it was about 10 days apart. So I would get calls saying, wait a minute, I just got a letter from the library. Why am I getting another one? And that was a refrain of we were confusing our donors. So the following year, we sat down with the Friends, joined forces, and sent a joint letter out with the headline that says, join the Friends, give to the foundation. And donors could literally check off in two separate columns how much they wanted to give to each organization. And honestly, it worked really well. We did that until 2018. And then after that, we invested in a joint database to track the donations, and the gifts would come into the foundation, and then every quarter, we would cut a check to the Friends for the portion of the gifts that were designated for them. And then we started doing more and more together. We started putting both of our logos on our promotional materials for events. We gave each other shout outs. We jointly funded our summer reading and Read Across Lawrence programs. And our supporters would volunteer for both the book sales and our special events. So interestingly, it turns out that we really liked each other. We became each other's cheerleaders. We loved it when the Friends gave $100,000 to the library from their book sales. And we also cheered when the Library Foundation successfully completed its capital and endowment campaigns for our new building. So when the time came to think about joining forces, we figured we've been living together for so long, it was time to put a ring on it. Now we'll hear from Logan.
Yeah, so the two reasons to merge that were staring us in the face, as Kathleen explained, were donor confusion about how the organizations were separate in the first place, and then some administrative overlap that we discovered. So we created this Venn diagram to visualize the functions of each organization and how those functions overlapped specifically. It basically demonstrates that both organizations are committed to raising funds for the library. The Friends prioritize the current needs with annual block grants, while the foundation prioritizes the future needs with the endowment. The visual aid was a powerful tool to help convince people on both sides that merging the organizations would be a net positive and that we were all working towards the same goal of supporting the library. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathleen.
Actually, I believe it's Angela.
It's me.
My bad.
I'll be Kathleen. So to start everything off, we established a merger steering committee. And it was really important from the beginning that we have equal representation from everyone involved. So we had 2 from trustees, 3 from Friends, 3 from foundation. They were current, past board members, volunteers. And then we had the library director, 2 foundation staff, which is Kathleen and Logan, and then me from the Friends staff, and 1 attorney to make sure that we didn't land ourselves in jail. So we sent a survey out to all of the Friends volunteers and members and all the foundation donors, just to kind of get an idea of where everybody stood. And we met in that big steering committee to kind of see, you know, what are our goals? What are we doing? What do we want to do? And just kind of envision a merged organization working in its best capacity. So these were the goals that we came up with. We wanted to support the immediate and the long-term needs of the library. And the more we talked about what we were doing, we started to see that the two organizations are acting like a checking account and a savings account. So the Friends are handling those short-term needs, and the foundation was handling the long-term needs. And everybody knows a healthy financial situation, you've got checking and savings. We also wanted to maximize volunteer support. Volunteer hours are so precious to us. We kind of ran numbers seeing what the overlap was doing in terms of volunteer hours, board member hours, sitting in on 2 different meetings, how much administrative duplication we were doing, like, you know, filing 2 sets of taxes, all those things. And we put an actual dollar value on that. And it was a real eye-opener for everyone. Our volunteers work really hard. So, you know, wasting a bunch of hours is not what we want to do. We also wanted to create a community of library advocates. We didn't want to confuse people. Why can't a foundation donor get in on members night at the book sale? Why are we not asking the Friends volunteers to work at our annual fundraiser? We're all here because we believe in the library. Let's start acting like it. Let's not put people into different sections. So with that, with our goals in hand, then we could kind of go to the next step. And I'll let, I think, Kathleen talk about that.
Yeah, this list of what we explored became kind of our monthly checklist for our steering committee meetings. For each of these components, we created small sort of subcommittees or working groups that then would meet outside of the merger steering committee meetings and sort out the issues and challenges, and then report back to the main group. We reviewed the list every single month, and we did meet monthly, and then provided status reports until all the work was completed. So on the board structure, this was a major concern of how many people. The Friends and Foundation each had 13 voting members on their boards. How are we going to winnow that down to one board? And the steering committee made the decision that they didn't want just a giant board of 26 people. So we wanted to know, what are the standing committees going to be? How do we do this equitably so that both groups are well represented in the new board? What was our process for who got to stay and who went, and how long would these people serve? And would it be possible to bring on some new board members who can give us some new ideas and new voices? And as the governing and legal documents were also a major issue. Obviously, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of the merging. We worked to meld our bylaws, our policies and procedures. If it sounds arduous and detailed, it was. We spent hours and hours and hours with some incredibly dedicated volunteers, many of whom were retired librarians who helped us make sure that everything was capitalized and that bylaws was consistently spelled, because some people like to put a hyphen in it and some people don't. So those are in fantastic shape. When we finally kind of came through the governing document tunnel, we agreed that it was really a really positive experience, because boy, our documents are in excellent condition. On the legal document side, we had help from a fantastic pro bono attorney. He happened to be the same attorney that incorporated the foundation back in 1996. So he knew the history of the two organizations really well and had a great sense of how each of them operated. Plus his wife is on the foundation board, so that helped us a bunch. And the way it works in terms of a cost-effective merger is that the organization with the largest assets survives. So in this case, it was the foundation, and the foundation's federal ID number survives. And then the organization, the other organization, which is Friends, merges into it. And the notion of the Friends dissolving was very alarming to some. So what we decided to do was officially change the name of the organization to the Friends and Foundation to reflect that both components were equally as important. And this, in the end, proved to be a really, really smart move. On the financial side of things, our treasurers from both organizations met regularly with the library bookkeeper to determine how to meld our bank accounts, our investment funds, reorganize the way our financial reports looked and our budgets. We also brought in our auditor for a meeting to make sure that we were doing everything correctly as far as the IRS is concerned. So now Angela will talk to you about the book sale and PR marketing pieces.
Yes, book sales were very important for us. They're more than just selling books. Our volunteers create a community of book lovers, which is important. We have the environmental benefit of reusing books. And we also like to raise funds for literacy programs. So this was a big piece. We wanted to keep the sales successful. We wanted to keep them vibrant, and we didn't want to lose focus that we are here for book sales. They're growing, so let's make them strong. And that actually kind of ties into the PR marketing piece. The merger was really an opportunity to amplify our voice and unify our voice. We were kind of diluting our message between the two organizations. So one message with a louder voice was what we were looking for. A lot of people said, we're just here to support the library, the end. Like, we don't need to say, how do you want to support the library? Here are all of your choices. Just let's support the library, the end. And so that also helps tie in with our membership and fundraising, because if people know about us, they want to give us money. So I'll let Logan talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So with this newly joined force, we started to establish new donor levels and perks that reflected these combined goals to support the library. We had already been working together on smaller fundraisers, which we call BFF events, stands for Biblio Friends and Foundation. We've done things like drag bingo and adult story time. Now we could start planning our big fundraisers together. So on the foundation side, I can tell you it was just a huge game changer to have access to our pool of dedicated Friends volunteers to help bring our annual fundraiser to life. Setup and teardown took literally half the time that it typically takes, and we all considered this a welcome change. And then we launched in January. We held a Better Together merger celebration and invited everyone involved with the Friends Foundation and Library to join us. The real treat was that every attendee was given specially designed socks featuring our newly combined logo, which you can see in the corner there. Everybody loved them and agreed that they're much more exciting than getting yet another t-shirt. With that, we'll turn it over to Kathleen.
All right, well, now we'll take each of these separately. I want to talk about the board structure. So this is the board structure that we settled on. There are 13 voting members on the Friends and Foundation board. The executive board are 4 officers: the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and the treasurer. We have 7 standing committees. The treasurer heads our finance committee, and then the chair heads up 3 committees, actually: the executive committee, the nominating committee, and the advocacy committee. I will note that the advocacy committee is a new addition to both boards, and a great idea, once again, that we got at this conference. There was a lot of conversation about advocacy last year in Calgary, and the purpose of that committee is to essentially advocate for the public funding of the library. The Friends and Foundation are in a really unique position to advocate for the tax dollars that come to the library and to make sure those stay strong, because the reality of the situation is that that comprises the vast majority of the funds that help the library continue to serve the community. So thank you actually to the St. Paul Public Library Friends. I believe it was your presentation that planted that seed for us, and we're really excited to further develop that particular function for our mission. So, and then in addition, we had some at-large board members. One of them is a representative of the Board of Trustees. And then the other 5 are individual members that were a combination of Friends and Foundation board members. And then our staff there is across the bottom. The way we did this, we did decide, as I said before, to winnow the board down to 13 folks from a total of 26. We surveyed all the board members, asked, do you want to stay? Do you not want to stay? Do you want to serve as a committee chair? Several of the friends on the board said that they would prefer to be on the standing committees for on-site or internet sales. And so rather than serve as the chair of one of those committees and be on the board, they are still very much a part of the organization, working really, really hard on the book sale end of things. So we didn't lose the people, they just kind of switched gears. And actually they were really grateful to not have to attend yet another meeting in the course of the month. And really it all worked out. I'm not sure how, but it worked out in such a way that we had 2 open positions that allowed us to recruit 2 new people and include some new voices. And as Angela said, I think my favorite part of the whole thing is that our chair is one of the founders of the Friends, and she is 85 years old. She is a rock star, amazing, and one of our biggest cheerleaders, and incredibly supportive of this effort. Logan.
Yeah, so now we've come to the politics and concerns part of our how-to guide. It's important to keep in mind that these organizations remained autonomous for 3 decades and only started to really work together in the last 3 years. So people involved in either organization were concerned that their respective organization would lose its focus. It's an understandable concern. The Friends thought that they could lose their autonomy or get swallowed up by the foundation, hence this choice gift here. As Kathleen mentioned, the Friends organization was dissolved into the foundation because of their larger assets. You can imagine the emotional response to a word like dissolved, but this is just legal language, and it took special care to address this in a way that put everyone involved at ease. The concern from the foundation was that it would lose its focus on the long-term view and building the endowment, but both sides really did a good job of addressing all concerns directly and having those conversations before they turned into a monster. So with that, we can turn it over to where are we now?
Well, we're kind of in an interesting situation now. It's a bad year to look at where we were last year versus this year, because things are all different, as I think everyone is dealing with right now. So it's hard to really say how the merger impacted our revenue. But I can say, I think that diversifying our revenue was an amazing idea in retrospect. We've got that good, financial health. We've got our checkings account and our savings account. Right now, not a lot is coming into our checking account. We can't have book sales. We still have internet sales, but our big book sales aren't happening. So we've got our savings to fall back on, which is perfect. Diversifying your revenue is really important, I think. And this situation that we all find ourselves in really illustrates that. The opposite could be true in the future. Maybe the markets aren't doing well, but we can still have book sales to kind of make our checking bigger and support the library. So I think I'm really glad that we merged January 1st of this year. I almost said June 1st. That's not right. January 1st. We were also able, Kathleen, Logan, and I, to think of really creative ways to adjust to the new normal. And in situations where I could not have done it alone, they maybe could not have done it alone. We are all working together to brainstorm new ways to support our community through grants, which is not my strong suit, but it's Kathleen's. Online fundraisers that we're dreaming up, and then online book sales. So I think we are stronger this year because we were merged. And now I'll kick it over to Kathleen for our success factors.
All right. So we all talked about what made this effort successful. And these are just a few pointers to keep in mind if you are interested in going down this path with your friends and foundation. The first rule is go slow, don't pressure people. There is so much emotion tied up in this process because like if, for example, with our friends, many of them have been involved since 1973. And on the foundation side, many of them have been involved since 1996. So don't push them, use the time, give yourself enough time to make this and be thorough and thoughtful about it. Secondly, build a trustworthy process. Keep it transparent. Communicate often. We set up a web page on the library website that we would literally upload the latest version of the policies, the bylaws, as we were doing it so that people could always see where we were. Take a vote. In the Friends bylaws, it required that the membership take a vote to merge. And we had during their annual meeting, we had a great conversation with a lot of back and forth. And in the end, it overwhelmingly passed. I believe there were 7 people that voted against it and about 80 that voted in favor of it. So we were really excited about that. And on the foundation side, it was a unanimous vote of the board. So it's so important that people trust you as you are navigating this process. Number 3 is really listen. Again, it's an emotional decision. You got to keep your ear to the ground. Angela did a masterful job of listening to the friends as they were sorting books and posting things online and hearing their comments. And the minute there was some sort of concern, she addressed it. Because you don't want in a group setting for that to go viral because it really does affect the morale of the group. And on the foundation side, I had a couple of former board members who were very concerned about losing the focus on the endowment. And boy, we were out for coffee in a heartbeat, talking and with some reassurances that, you know, those wishes are going to be honored, and absolutely the endowment is a high priority in this process. So it's important to, you know, speak to their loss because it is a loss for many, many people, but do address the problems right away and don't let things build up. And then fourth, get buy-in from all sides, not only from the Friends and Foundation, but also from the library and its staff. The library staff is a conduit to the community, and many of our volunteers, they talk to our volunteers on a regular basis. And, you know, their advocacy really, really helps. And for them to be positive about the merger is super important. So keep your library staff informed as well as you go through the process, because they will help you prepare. So that is what we have. We want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to share our story. And our last slide is our contact information. Please feel free to contact any one of us. We love to talk about this experience. It was challenging at times, but really, really, really fantastic and rewarding in the end. And I'm really proud of our team and of our volunteers, and it's gonna be magic. I'm really, really excited. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate this opportunity.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and take some of the live questions with our wonderful speakers. I'm going to just go ahead and open up Logan and Kathleen so that we can chit chat with them. If you could just give me 1 sec. I don't know that Angela made it on or was able to join the call today. So let me go ahead and grab Logan and Kathleen in the meantime. Okay. We have both of you here.
Yep. Hey.
Okay. So we have quite a few questions. I saw that some of you were able to answer throughout this session, but let's go through some anyway so everybody can hear. What are some conversation points for talking with the friends about merging with a brand new foundation?
I would say it's very, very important to lay a foundation of trust with the friends group, particularly if I understand right, the foundation is brand new, and so you have to create a foundation of conversation and trust with them. You know, make sure you encourage them. I think one thing that I have seen with friends groups in particular is that sometimes they feel underappreciated because, you know, a lot of times the foundation's bringing in more money, but boy, never underestimate the value of those volunteers and what they do for the library. I mean, we have our volunteers on the friends side gave 10,000 hours of service to the library last year. And according to the national rate, it's $25 an hour. That's $250,000 of value of labor for the library. So this kind of joint appreciation for each other is so, so important to build trust and just good rapport. And then over time, it gets really easy because you actually like each other and want to work together. And for us, that's been kind of the magic formula, is just appreciating what each group brings to the table to support the library.
Great. And Logan, feel free to jump in wherever.
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, who else? Let's see. Jennifer Rick asked, I'm interested how to join Friends and Foundation with a 10 library system, each with their own friends group.
It's a hell of an undertaking.
Again, I think in that case, you know, my assumption is that each of those groups has a unique identity, and not losing that as part of the process is really, really important. And there obviously needs to be some sort of, you know, cohesive underpinning that brings it together as one group. But I think the important thing there is to respect the differences that those individual, you know, branches and groups bring to the table, and try to retain that if you can. Again, it's more efficient from a, you know, a communication standpoint and a financial standpoint, but you don't want to underestimate the emotional buy-in and the just the tie that people feel to the organization. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that would be my thought on that, is to really be careful about pulling out that unique identity that each of those groups has.
Yeah, it's a really delicate balance between respecting those unique identities and those unique little cultures of organization, and then also framing it in a way that, like, we're all working toward the exact same goal. We're all trying to support the library. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, I agree. I think that shared mission becomes really important as well. And so trying to come up with a way to make sure that everybody feels that is key to the whole process.
Great. Okay, we have another one. What happened with the boards of each organization when they merged?
The two boards, what we did is we, in an effort to keep our communication open, we surveyed each board, the Friends board and the Foundation board, and asked, you know, each member individually, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay on? Do you want to not stay on? What do you like doing most on the Friends side? That particular board was a very, very much a working board, where they were doing all sorts of hands-on work for the book sale. They, you know, not only have on-site book sale, but have a really successful on-site and online operations. And the folks on the board were really very much doing the work. So several of those people really wanted to be on a standing committee and continue their work with the organization, but do it as part of the standing committee, and maybe not as the chair of that standing committee, and serve on the larger board. So we didn't lose them. They're still very much a part of the organization, but just continued on in a capacity in a different structure, honestly. But enough of the friends, they felt that they really wanted to have a presence on the new board. So it's pretty well balanced, where you have, like, on the officers, there were 2 from the foundation, 2 from the friends, and then it kind of trickled down, you know, across the standing committees. Those were evenly divided as far as the chairs are concerned. And then the at-large members, 2 are existing or former foundation board members. And then amazingly, by some miracle, we had 2 empty slots. And that was a fantastic opportunity, because we brought on 2 people who have just completely different and fresh views that they bring, and ideas. So it's helped us kind of completely be able to, I don't know, bring some new ideas to the table and offer those to our patrons and our supporters.
Absolutely. And Katie, it looks like Angela did just get in here. If you would mind pulling her up.
Sure.
Yeah. Dragon. Sorry. 3 cats, and they're on me all the time.
Okay, let me go ahead and unmute you. Angela, you should be good now.
Hi.
Hi. We were talking about the boards of each organization when they merged. I don't know if you were able to hear Kathleen's response, but if you have anything to add to it, feel free.
I think she hit the nail on the head. She was great.
Great.
I approve.
Okay, here's another question. What is happening with the sales revenue stream? Is it holding steady?
No. So normally our book sales earn over $20,000 at a sale. We just can't have that kind of support right now, because that's a big, huge community event with lots of people. But we have instituted Facebook Live sales, which are getting books out into the public. They're also raising some money for the library's summer reading. So it's not the same, but it has nothing to do with a merger. It's just the situation we find ourselves in right now. But they were holding steady before all this stuff happened.
Yeah, and I will add that the online sales are doing pretty well, pretty much the same as they had in previous years.
That's great. Okay, let's see, what else? Was your friends group monolithic, or were there friends groups for each local branch?
Yeah, we are a single facility. We serve 100,000 people, but it's just one downtown branch. So that was not an issue that we had to deal with in terms of managing friends groups at different locations.
Okay.
It makes it a lot simpler.
Okay, this one's interesting. Did you experience any resistance from individual board members? This is from, let's see who this one's from. Claire Ross and Laura Mann had the same situation. She said, we got very close to merging a few years ago, but it got tanked by a few passionate people who were very resistant. And yeah, I would add that if there is, you know, if that did happen, how did you handle it?
Okay, you know, we came close. It did not happen in the end. I think when we talked about the legal documents when we got to that point, and the lawyer drafted the papers, and it essentially described the friends being merged into the foundation. There were some board members that really paused on that, because it was just the way it was written. It was alarming, and it's true. I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with that at all, because these are people who just pour their heart and soul into working for the library. And I kid you not, I arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning and they are there, and I leave at 6 o'clock at night and they are there. Really passionate, committed people. And so we worked together and reworked the language a little bit with the attorney so that it read, the members of the Friends will become members of the Friends and Foundation. The members of the Foundation will become members of the Friends and Foundation. So we worked that name change in before and then added that language, and that took care of it. But it was, I gotta say, it was one of those moments where, oh my gosh, we've been doing this for 8 months. And, you know, it's all going to unravel, but it didn't. And people were super understanding. We worked through it. But yes, I agree. Having your board behind you is super important. We were lucky. The Board of Trustees was very much in favor of this. They saw mostly the confusion that it created in the community among donors that, you know, from the outside, I will say from the outside, people don't even know that this happened. You know, for them, the Friends and Foundation have always been one group. You know, what are you talking about? So when it came time to celebrating, it was the people who were in the inside of the organizations that were most excited and most, you know, keyed into bringing the two groups together. But from the public standpoint, it was just very, very confusing. And the trustees board absolutely saw that. The Friends and Foundation board members absolutely saw that. So we did have a couple of little glitches that we had to work out, and we were fortunate that it all was able to be resolved.
We have a few follow-up questions, I think, that are coming in now. One is, who is facilitating all of the conversations? For example, the surveys of the boards about what they wanted. That's one.
Okay, yeah, that is, well, essentially, it's my responsibility, and together with Angela and Logan, to get all that information and synthesize it. We have a lot of great boards and committees that help us look at that data and those responses, and, you know, from the perspective that they bring, either the Friends side or the Foundation side. And also, you know, it's a small enough like core group that you kind of know who's really concerned, and I can't underestimate how important it is just to directly address that with people and check in on them, and just try to let them know that you hear their concerns, and you know, we'll do our best to resolve them. And that being said, you can't obviously please 100% of the people, but you can sure kind of calm their fears and just listen to them and acknowledge that it's a big change and that really it will all be okay. And it has been. It's actually been really, it's gone really smoothly, other than a virus, but you know, how do you control that? So yeah, I don't know if Angela or Logan, if you have anything to add to that.
I would say communication was the biggest piece. I had more my hands on the pulse of the Friends volunteers. So it was important for me to do the surveys with them to see, you know, what are the fears that you have? What are your concerns? What are you excited about? And never putting things too like doom and gloom, what's the worst that could happen kind of a thing. But yeah, and then Kathleen and Logan had the foundation side. They knew the people who are really passionate about that side of things and what those concerns were, and just getting together and talking, just communicate, and understanding that it's a big change. And change is never easy, as we are all seeing right now.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another. How do you deal with situations where a donor had made a planned gift to the foundation, and how would you still be able to receive those donations from the organization's name if the organization, after the organization's name had changed?
Yeah, the federal ID number since the foundation was sort of the surviving corporation, the federal ID number of the foundation survives. And so anybody who has made a planned gift to the foundation, usually they need the federal ID number as part of that process. And so that will be the same. In the Secretary of State's records, say somebody left a planned gift to the Friends, well, the Friends is cross-referenced in their records, so that if somebody makes a planned gift under the Friends' old federal ID number, that is shown as being merged in with the new one. So that was a question. Most of our planned gifts, actually all of them, in my experience there, have all come to the foundation. There have been some in the distant past that have come into the Friends, but most come to the foundation because that's why it was established originally, was to take those sorts of gifts. So that federal ID number is retained, and so consequently, it's still there's not an issue with that.
Okay. It looks like we have about one more question and we have 15 minutes left. There are a couple of, housekeeping things I'll go through. But the last question, unless anybody else wants to toss one in, because we do have time, is suppose a foundation has unrestricted funds set up for each branch, largely controlled by the branch manager, whereas our friends has control over their funds. Who oversees daily expenditures?
Yeah, the way we do it is, I guess, daily expenditures in terms of the money that you give to the library. Is that correct? Is that how I understand?
Daily expenditure. Yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
it.
we issue most of our gifts to the library as a block grant, and the library director has discretion as to how it's spent. That actually is a relatively, well, and our new current library director has been there 8 years, and that was something that was instituted with him. The Friends in particular, since their gifts were, more for immediate needs, had for many years had identified exactly how they wanted that money to be spent. And he suggested, could you give it to me in the form of a block grant? Trust me. And at the end of the year, I will report back to you on how this money was spent. And if you're not happy with that, then we can, fix it for the next year. And that relationship has worked really, really nicely. And it really has improved the relationship between the library director and the library and the Friends and Foundation. Because there is a certain amount of trust that you have to have in each other, and that you'll, spend the money wisely. A lot of the money coming into the foundation is restricted for a certain purpose anyway, like for kids or computers or something like that. So, yeah, it's all in how you structure it. And I think a block grant approach for us anyway works really, really nicely. I will say, just as a general note, this isn't for everyone. Part of me wants to say don't sit home, but do if you think it I've run into situations in talking with other foundations where there's such a chasm between the Friends and Foundation groups that they just cannot even imagine that they could ever merge. A lot of that happens when the assets of the foundation are enormous and the assets of the Friends are not. We were closer together, so it was not as difficult for people to sort of envision this partnership. But that's not to say that it's not possible, because it is, with the proper communication and trust between the two organizations. But I think you would know if you think it's possible. I mean, it's and if it's not possible now, my recommendation is to just give it some time, and really it's that sort of mutual admiration for each other that will make it happen. Think about the contributions that each group gives to each other and to the library. I mean, it's enormous what each group does in a totally different way. And if you can celebrate that and, shine the light on it. I mean, my gosh, we got to the point where at every single author visit where we do a presentation or an introduction, we would always give a shout out to the Friends and encourage people to go to the book sale, because those dollars are as important to the library as, starting a fund for an author. So, yeah, just really support each other and celebrate each other.
Yeah, I would say if you think that your organizations aren't playing well right now, maybe don't try to merge next year, but work on building the relationship. I think probably our Friends and Foundation, if you would have asked us 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you guys would merge, people would be like, no. So don't lose hope, even if it feels really far away. Just start finding things to work together on, open those lines of communication, and start building trust. It's just like a regular relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. You just start trusting each other more. You trust the director to spend the money wisely. And he'll ask us, what are you guys interested in supporting with this block grant? Ask their opinion, and just talk it out.
So we don't have any more questions, but there are some interesting things coming up in the chat right now, or that were a little bit earlier in your presentation. Laura Mann wrote, we have not merged mainly because the Friends see it as being lesser than. We've been at talks for 7 years now and no movement. So I don't know, I mean, I know since that question kind of came up, you guys have kind of talked about some ways that you can start communication and kind of make that a little bit better, but if there are any last minute relationship you have, I suppose.
That's really common where the somebody at some point said, well, like the foundation is like the board of trustees and the Friends were the PTA or something. I'm thinking, no, that's not right at all. I mean, or I even heard from some of the Friends, well, those foundation board members are all, like business owners and doctors and lawyers. And no, that's not right either. I mean, there's a perception out there of this weird dichotomy. And I mean, I look at the Friends and I see distinguished professors from the University of Kansas who are sorting books. And I mean, one of them speaks like 9 languages. It's like, that's amazing. I mean, and I really so cannot tell you how important it is to just find those incredible people and the services that they offer the library and just shine the light on them. And I feel it's really incumbent on the foundation side particularly, because that seems to be where the issue is, where the Friends feel like a lesser organization, say, and refute that, like flatly refute that. I mean, the value of their volunteer service, the unrestricted nature of the gifts that they can give the library. I mean, that's a gift in itself. I mean, so much that the foundation gives has strings attached to it, but the Friends money, it's unrestricted, and that gives the library so much freedom to do so many different things. And I mean, that's incredibly valuable. So I seek out those pieces and the benefits on the Friends side and always talk about them. Just start weaving them into your special programs. At our fundraisers, when we have like the opening welcoming remarks, we always would thank the Friends for their support for the library. Just over time, that works. It just suddenly the Friends feel valued, and because they are. I mean, that's the honest truth. They are incredible people, and they need to be appreciated publicly. And that will all start kind of dissipating the more you do that. I promise. Trust me.
Claire Horlings wrote, we are looking at the possibility of hiring a consultant to evaluate our current situation and advise on folding in our Alliance of Friends, which is the board and members represent individual branch-based Friends groups, utilizing their 501c3 rather than creating another 501c3. This was recommended in preliminary conversation with a consultant. I don't know if you guys have had anything similar in your endeavors, but
yeah, that's a different scenario than what we have been dealing with, since we're just a single facility and don't have multiple groups. I think that's actually a scenario where a consultant would be really helpful, because that's a lot more complicated than the situation that we're dealing with. So yeah, relying on some professional help to sort that out, I think, is a good idea. I would agree with that.
And then we had one more comment in the chat from Jennifer Rick. Our public school foundation has recently worked with all 36 K through 12 PTAs to have each one donate 10% of their budget to an equity fund held by the district's school foundation. It is a model that I'm looking at as a starting point with our 10 Friends groups to partner with our library foundation. Interestingly, our foundation dollars are restricted for the system, and the Friends fundraising is restricted to their branch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually was an idea that was floated with our school district as well. And I think it's valuable. I mean, because you do have certain branches, I suspect, that can raise a whole lot more than others. And having some sort of, I think it gets back to serving that collective mission of the library, so that, having some sort of percentage that they can give to a equal, like an equity fund that could then be parsed to those branches that might not have the fundraising power that another would, but still have needs. and in most cases, probably higher level needs than some of the branches that can raise a lot of money and find the money for the special project. So yeah, I think that's a real solid possibility and a good approach. I think the resistance that we ran into with our school, and this is, well, why can't we support our local branch in the way that we want to support it? So you have to appeal to their sense of, the wider mission, the equity, the mission of a public library. Oh my gosh, of helping, the underserved, and what better way to do it than to collectively, fund those projects for maybe the branches that don't have the ability to do that, to raise the money for them.
Okay, so I think I refreshed. I think that that's all the questions we have today. But my goodness, that was such a jam-packed session. Thank you so much, ladies, for all of that, for your presentation and for coming and being available for the live Q&A, which was, I think, really helpful to a lot of people. Thanks again, Kathleen, Logan, and Angela, and for everybody for joining.